This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so happy Monday. Today is Monday, July 20th, and as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So we got some real good trades going on this morning. Now, unfortunately, DBW, I wouldn't say it's a great trade, but definitely had a real nice burst coming off that 450 up here. So the big thing now is just what's going to go on at that 5. So what we've seen is that we've seen some ask prints at 5, not really that great, but really what was great was the building that we got above that 5 level. So we have to understand something. Pretty much coming into 9 o'clock, we know there's going to be some type of profit taking coming in, and that's kind of what we saw right here. I wouldn't really take that as riders as much as profit taking because of the fact, just think about it. The stock closed at $2, it jumped up to 5. That's the $3 move. You're talking about over 100%. So we know people are going to come in and they're going to take that profit. And a lot of time, 9 o'clock is one of those spots where we see some really nice prints come in. That's pretty much why we start our meeting at 9. So what happened is that the building above definitely shows us that we're able to go, that we have enough buying to be able to get to 550, because it really kind of gave us the buying to almost 6. I wouldn't say all the way there, but almost 6. So what we have to look at is there new buying coming in, which obviously it still is, and have we pulled back enough? Have we pulled back enough from what we've seen already? And I haven't seen that yet. So I'm really expecting, based off of the profit taking that we saw here, for us to get a nice big pull down, especially being at the 5 level. We know it's just not it's a huge psychological level, not an easy thing to hold. So I'm going to be expecting another kind of run towards that downside, and then obviously afterwards to kind of start to satisfy that building and buying that we saw coming in over that 5 level. Just keep in mind, a lot of the great building that happened was over the 5. So that should take our time period and kind of shorten it a bunch. Rather than if everything just happened at that 5, then, we're talking about longer and longer and longer. But based off of those prints coming in, we shouldn't really have that long of a time period. So if we start to see it really not do much and really take, a huge hit to the downside, it's going to kind of change that, and it's not going to really align with what the prints are. So just something to definitely keep in mind. But we definitely need to see that pullback that comes underneath, and then a trigger to the upside, like I said, should not be that long of a time frame. mRNA, my favorite stock at the moment. And best trade this morning by far. Now you can see it went to hard to borrow, which I have a hard time understanding that. There are shares available. I had no problem getting exactly what I wanted for them. The thing is that if we come down, so 87.50, we just got a few bid prints coming in, but if you look, there hasn't under 90 been that much selling coming. So even though, this beautiful move towards that downside, remember, a lot of the orders are very thin. So what's happening is that, we're getting some really big bursts. And I don't know if it's going to let me go all the way back, but if we could go back to 90, you would have seen. So it looked like there was no bid prints at 90 when we first came down here. But what happened was it just showed up on the smaller time in sales. But, if you really calculated it and looked at exactly what it was, it would have showed up as the amount of shares that came in those bid bursts. And just see if I can get all the way down and if it will let me. Come on. So close. Okay. So those aren't them yet. Can I skip them? Okay. Either way, a lot. I mean, there was just tons of zeros and ones and 5s and everything else. And basically, because it happened in that one burst, we have to assume that much retail didn't just come in at 90 to start to sell. Those happened afterwards. So the bid prints that we have at 90 right here, which is not going to let me go all the way back, but the bid prints that happened at 90 was afterwards, after we popped back up. I'm talking about that first time that we started right over here as we came back down. There wasn't actually any type of bigger prints. I put it in the chat so you could look at the exact time frame. But overall, I need to see more selling coming in. Otherwise, we're going to see a huge pullback above. And I wouldn't say pullback because obviously this is a very bullish stock at the moment. And this technically really would be the pullback from the amount of buying that we saw coming into it. So really, without that selling, you can see at these lows, we're seeing a lot of that buying coming in. So I would not be shocked to see this thing pull back over 90 very, very quickly, unless we start to see some type of selling coming in, which I just don't see whatsoever, especially because of the fact, too, that we came down to that 87.50 really on not that much. I mean, it was definitely, don't get me wrong, it was good, great what we had at 90, but just not that much there. So overall, I'm going to be looking for us to come back towards that top unless we start to see selling coming in. And once again, this is going to have a huge range today. You can see on average 521, but just look at the volume that's been coming into it and look at what it did, basically what it did in the pre-market. You're talking about over a $10 trade. So at the end of the day, this is going to be a real nice stock for us to be watching with. Just remember, all we need to get is, these show of hands. The print personality all of a sudden has changed, but you could say it's pretty thin, and then all of a sudden now the buying is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. So that basically what that's telling us. I wouldn't be shocked to see them run it down a little bit first, just because of the amount of buying coming in, but definitely going to be looking for us to get back towards that 90, and then from 90 we can kind of go from there. IMRN, another one. Now, this is going to be a side list stock just because of the volume, and I have not seen any type of real prints that have came into this yet. But the reason it's on the side list is because just look at the range that we already have. On average, it doesn't really move much. Unless on Friday it trades 74 cents, and you can see how much of a jump, 637 all the way up to these highs right here of about 575, give or take. So from there, it really shows a lot of potential. Unfortunately, what we're going to need is for it to give some type of controlling prints come in. And as we get closer to the open, the volume and the order should thicken up a little bit. So we should be able to get a good indication. But, a few prints in a stock like this goes a long way. So if you get a real nice burst, it shows a whole lot. Now, as it's happening, I know this started the second I started my meeting, but SRNE, I just want to point this out right now. So beautiful buying coming into this push. And then look at the prints that we just got, 8.99 to go into 9. So it's definitely showing that we have more room going towards this upside. This is a great pre-market trade to look for, but we're going to have to pull back from those 9 prints because based off of what the personality itself is, you can see as it was moving up, and of course it's parabolic, so that we have to expect the print personality to be a little bit less. But overall, this is a big amount of shares for what we've seen so far coming into this morning. As I've been talking, I've been staring at it on a different screen. So I just want to bring that up. First, obviously, this is, is looking real good. And the volume itself, I mean, this is volume that would be trading once the market actually opens, not pre-market volume. So expect that pullback coming up, and then a trigger towards that 9 will definitely be a high probability. IBIO, Robert, I have not, and I'm going to begin right now. So coming into this 5, you can see we are getting some nice buying. Okay, we haven't really got that much compared to what I would expect, though, just because of the amount of volume as we were pushing into this 5. You can see, we're talking about almost 250,000 shares there. But overall, definitely showing new interest, new buying coming in, and I really love the prints that have been coming underneath it because it's giving us a time frame of a pretty short time frame. But overall, just remember 5 is one of those levels. I just wish that it would be at like 3 or 350 or 4, even 4 would be better, because you got to remember 5 is going to play games. So with the amount of prints that we got at 5 right here, it's showing us we do need to pull back, but for the prints that came in underneath it, we're very heavy. So that pullback definitely, once again, should have a shorter time frame on it. So pull back, trigger towards the upside, let it go. And then when you come to 5, just be aware, you really want to try to, and in a stock like this, a perfect case scenario is entering somewhere 475 and at 450 even better, for it to pull back that much, because once it gets to 5, let's say it pulls back to like 480, and then you get a trigger and you're in at 490. Well, guess what you risk? The problem is that then it gets to 5 and it prints huge again. Now you're in 8 cents and you get that huge pullback bar that comes in. So it's just not a great spot for the trade itself. We want to make sure that it pulls back a decent amount. And keep in mind, that doesn't mean I wouldn't trade that specifically, but you have to understand that you run the possibilities of that happening. So if a trigger, let's say it only pulls back 15, 20 cents from there, which it really shouldn't. It should pull back more than that. But let's say it only does. Make sure that trigger breaks way past that 5 level and shows you that the 5 isn't going to be a problem anymore, and make sure that you don't get those huge prints. You're almost better waiting for it to go a little bit higher and getting that better confirmation than you are for to kind of try to jump the gun and then get caught in that kind of crossfire. DGLY. I know Doug loves this stock. So this is on the bottom of my side list because it kind of just stopped trading. But the thing I did like, as it came up, it did have some decent prints at 4 and had a little bit more buying coming in, around that 420 level. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it because we know that this thing can move. If we come over here on the daily, we can see, we can have some days where it's get some really big movements. And this really is just a very elongated staircase. So a trigger back up, I would say, gives you about 68 to 72% in there, just because of the fact that, once again, there wasn't as much buying at the highs that I would like to see, but there still is enough there compared to it not trading whatsoever. So it's something that I'm still going to be looking at as well. I don't know if any of you guys took, I know I put this out there the other day, but for a longer term trade, I know NVAX, and this was back around the 100 level, but this thing's a monster. I guess, they're obviously, they got, what's it called? They got one, I think it was $1.6 billion for Operation Warp Speed, to try to get a COVID vaccine done immediately. So it's just something, for you guys, longer term guys. I have been seeing great buying coming into it. It is around the 150, but you might be able to get some real good information, even though it's $50 past when we first started talking about it. Something for you longer term guys just to keep an eye on. I know, I've been, I personally have been. So just, nice little trade, just something I wanted to bring up. But other than that, not really seeing too much else out there. So anything else out there that I missed? Okay, so the problem here, DPW I already went over. The problem, PFE, okay, I'm not a fan. Now, let me tell you the reasons. First of all, 77 cents on average, it moves within its range. So if you look right now, does it fit a criteria trade? It does, but I just don't see anything here. And then once it actually starts trading, you can see on average it trades 30 million shares. You get such a mix. It's just not a stock that I personally like. It just doesn't fit my type of criteria because it gets these constant consolidations to only move like 40 cents, and I'm just not a big fan. Yeah, it did have some good prints. I looked at what you called out before, and the prints were good. But overall, it's just not something I would focus on going into the beginning of the day, unless there was absolutely nothing else. But we just don't have that as the case. There's just better stuff for us to be looking at. Better trades, exactly, and that one of the biggest parts of being a successful trader is just knowing what to look at. So you don't want to get caught up in a stock that's going to move like this when, for instance, DPW ends up going, running to 6, or mRNA gives you a $10 move. So NKLA, I looked at before. I saw those prints too. It was 630. So this right here, okay. So I'll change my opinion right here. Beautiful prints at 39. This is a very smooth trading stock for the most part. So absolutely, 100%. So just if we're going to take it just following as the normal rules, okay, 39 bid prints, we would expect it to come up a little bit. The reaction afterwards was all selling, so I wouldn't expect too much of a pullback, but overall beautiful print showing us, especially underneath that 40 and breaking under, that's giving us, the confirmation that it really does want more room towards that downside. Absolutely. Before the prints weren't out, but this is definitely 100%. Look at the print personality, and then this is by far a show of hand that came in there. So definitely like it a lot. Anything else out there? I think that is about it. All right, guys, so remember, we have a ton going on. We have our classes that begin Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have our Traders Exchange on Tuesday and our group trade evaluation on Wednesday. So let's make sure I will have not one topic or anything to go over. I know we have some questions from last week for Traders Exchange that we did not hit, and I'm going to start, from there, but let's make sure that we get our info, our questions and topics in for Traders Exchange, and make sure you get your evals, guys. This is a free group coaching session. The person I pick is actually getting a personal coaching session. Do not waste the opportunity. All right, I will talk to everybody in the chat, and happy trading.